Is it possible to change your entire financial situation in less than 2 months? Well, optimistically, I would say the short answer is yes. This isn't going to magically fix all your financial problems in that span of time. But what it will do is give you a clear path that you can take to help better your current financial situation and give you a way for you to start attacking the goals that you really want to achieve. So if you're new here, my name's Ross. I'm a level 4 diploma holder in regulated financial planning. And in this video, I'm going to go through 6 steps with the goal of hopefully being able to do 1 a week that will get your financial position squared up and ready to go. This isn't some magic pill that's going to fix it. It's going to require effort, discipline, and consistency if you really want to make the most out of these steps to get your financial situation on track. But as they say, nothing good comes easy. So if you're able to stick to it and get through these steps, I can promise you, you will see the benefits. And to break you into it, week 1 and 2, that's mainly about setting out a plan, finding out what you really want to achieve and what you want to get done. And then weeks 3 through 6, they're where some real implementation happens. And that's where you're going to really start to mold what you want to see. So with that, we'll get right into it. And week 1 is just going to be nice, simple, hopefully, possibly a little bit therapeutic. And it's just finding out what you really want to achieve with this plan and with your finances throughout your life. The key word in personal finance is personal. So before we get on to the money and the budgets and the figures, you need to understand yourself first, because without that, the numbers are meaningless. So with that, you really need to understand and really think about whose life you're living and what your life looks like or would look like if you were to be happy and financially free. And it might sound nebulous, but really think, what would that mean for you? What would that look like for you? What do you need to have that feeling of security and freedom? Too many people will just set random numbers that sound nice in their head. For like example, I want to have £1 million and then I'll feel great. But in reality, numbers are relative, and what £1 million means for one person can be completely different to another person. A certain number isn't going to be determining how you feel about your finances. It goes a wee bit deeper than that. £1 million isn't a small number and it isn't a big number. That's all dependent on what you're comparing it to. What we really need is a vision for your life. I know this might sound like a bit much, but I do think it's a good practice to do, especially with these types of goal setting things, is to really just write down the answers to these thoughts, whether that's a wee journal or even like a Word document, something like that, in your notes app. Writing this stuff down forces you to actually think it through, to put it on paper or on screen, you know what I mean? Being forced to write it out makes you need to actually think it through. So honestly, give it a go. You'll realize that maybe you're not sure about certain things when you're trying to type it out, and then you're forced to think it through and then actually get it down on paper. If you're unsure for questions on what you might want to answer when writing stuff down, it might be stuff like, what does your ideal life feel like for you? Who do you want it to be with? What makes you really happy in life? What brings you real joy, not surface level stuff or validation from other people type of thing? Like, what actually makes you happy day to day? And then off the back of answering these questions, then ask yourself, how does this reflect in your current situation? And what would happen if you made no changes at all right now? Would these goals be able to be achieved if you changed nothing as is? And don't be afraid to go deep about it. Be specific when you're answering these types of questions. If you want to be the only one that reads it, that's completely fine. And it means you can be honest with it, because no one else is going to see it. So don't lie to yourself and really take the time to think this through. I know this sounds like something you might hear from a yoga retreat or something like that, but the reality is this type of process does work. Knowing where you want to end up is really important, because if you don't know where you're going to end up, you have no clue how you're going to get there in the first place. So taking the time to think this stuff through, get it on paper, and really solidify it in your thoughts is going to make the next steps much easier, as you'll be able to really motivate yourself when you're thinking back to these goals. So now after week 1, you should have an understanding of where you want to go and where you want to end up. Now in week 2, continuing with the foundational building before we move on to the real hard implementation steps, we're going to go ahead and assess the current situation, so where you're at right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This bit, it's going to be a bit boring, a bit dull, but it really is essential. What's going to involve you doing is pulling together all your bank statements, credit card statements, anything like that that's tracking where your money's going or ending up. And you want to do that for the previous 3 months at least. Ideally, the last 6 months would be a much better indicator. Once you've got a hold of all this, either put it into something like Excel, Google Sheets, maybe even a budgeting app if you're so inclined. There's plenty of videos on YouTube that you can go check on how to get this stuff over and put into a format that best suits you. And then the last thing I'm going to need you to do once you've gotten all this stuff laid out in front of you is to go through each one, each purchase, each transaction, and label it as one of two things, either a need or a want. And then once you've gone through all of them, total them up and work out percentage-wise how much of your money is going to one versus the other. And once you've done this, do not feel any sense of guilt or shame once you get a look at the numbers, because a lot of people don't realise what's actually going on. And the fact that you're taking these steps and documenting them and really now taking a look at it, you're doing more than most. So do not feel bad about this situation right now, as moving forward, it's going to help motivate you to maybe reallocate some of the spending. And again, similar to step one, it's important to get this stuff written down in a document that you can see clearly so that you can't escape it. Trying to do it in your head just isn't going to work. I mean, I struggle to think of what I had for dinner last week, never mind how much I spent on a Wednesday 3 months ago, type of thing. So make sure you are really diligent with this and get it all clearly noted down. And so as such, by the end of week 2 or step 2, you should be able to say what your average outgoings are for each month and each week, and what percentage on needs and wants this expenditure is going on, as well as stuff like how much money you've got left over or how much debt you're needing to take out to cover the expenses. So now with the first 2 weeks done, we've got a good understanding of where we want to go and where we are right now. So now we can actually start making some changes on what's currently going on so that you can really aim your ship in the direction that you want to go in terms of your financial well-being. So with that, week 3 is going to be all about debt and tackling any destructive debt that you have at the moment. And when I say destructive debt, I mean really high interest debt. So it's not going to be stuff like mortgages or, I was going to say car loans, but sometimes them interest rates are a bit bad. But I'm mainly meaning stuff like credit cards and payday loans, all that type of stuff. Interest rates that are north of 15, 20, 30%. These types of debts need to be cleared before we can do anything else. These types of debts have and will continue to ruin lives. So I can't express enough how important it is that this type of stuff, if you have any outstanding, needs to be tackled aggressively and quickly. So to start attacking this debt, we'll use the information that you've gathered in week 2 to be able to put together what you're currently spending and what's going towards debt. And you'll now need to make some choices, some cutbacks, so that you can have some money left at the end of the month that you can start using to paying down this debt. If you didn't do so previously, have your credit cards clearly labelled in the document that has all the information. Each one's details laid out side by side so you can clearly compare them all, the different interest rates, the current balance on them all, and then you can clearly get a good idea of which ones are the worst of the bunch or which ones have the largest outstanding balance due on them. With that info, you can then put the figures into a debt calculator, and then you can see how much you're needing to pay a month in interest from each one. And then once you've got that figure, you can then take 2 approaches on how you want to start paying down this debt. The 2 main methods to use are the avalanche approach or the snowball approach. And basically they just prioritize different things based on the person. If you're someone like me who might be more number focused, then you take the avalanche approach, which is just focusing down the debt that's costing you the most amount of money, which more times than not is going to be your highest interest debt, and taking your savings and hitting that one first, even if that one's going to take the longest to clear out of all of them. Alternatively, if you're someone who likes smaller, regular wins to keep themselves motivated, then the snowball approach might be a better one for you. With this one, you just start with the smallest balance that's there on your credit card and you pay that one down first. So that will be cleared much quicker. And then you go into the next smallest and then the next smallest. And obviously you start gaining momentum, hopefully keep your motivation throughout it, and work your way up to the biggest one and then pay that down last. Neither one is strictly better than the other. The best one for you is the one that you will do when it comes to doing this. So don't think that one is better than the other. Just pick the one that you're most likely to stick to and we'll stick to it. When I say attack this debt, I really mean attack it. Cut back as much of your lifestyle as you can to get this stuff down. The other steps you can maybe do a bit more relaxed, but this step has to be attacked as aggressively as possible, as like returns, stuff like credit card debt compounds over time and will only become harder the longer you leave it. So really attack it and really stick to it and make sure that this is done as quickly as possible. And then once this is handled, we can move into week 4, or if you were not in that position before where you never had outstanding debts that had to be paid, then you can obviously disregard the previous step and go into this one instead. So the next step, week 4, is going to be all about automating your saving journey. I can't stress enough how much automation really helps and takes the thought out of it and makes it so much easier to be disciplined without even realizing that you're being. Now, when I'm saying saving, I don't mean putting money aside so that you can afford that big 5-star holiday next year. The saving I'm talking about in this step is future building and protecting in your current situation from a financial disaster. So we'll get to the more fun saving later, but the main one in this is making sure that your future self is safe and your current self is safe from any financial disasters. So with that, there's 2 main points that you should really hit when you're going into this week that you should get set up and starting to accumulate. And that's your emergency fund and then your workplace pension if it's available. First up, and I would say more importantly, is getting stuff like your emergency fund stocked up and ready to be used when it needs to be, because whether you like to admit it or not, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So making sure that that is ready to be used will save you a lot of stress and possibly digging yourself into a hole that will take way longer to get out compared to saving up for the emergency pot in the first place. You don't want to start going through these steps and really starting to see some progress and then your boiler breaks and then you need to use a credit card to pay it off in a pinch and then suddenly you've got this big balance that suddenly needs addressed. And yeah, it's just a spiral you don't want to find yourself getting caught in. The 2 main accounts used for emergency funds that I normally see are cash ISAs and premium bonds. Both of them completely fine to use. The important thing is that it's easily accessible and it's not subject to volatility. So using stuff like equities and stocks and shares ISAs isn't a great idea, because if your boiler breaks right as a massive market downturn happens, then you might be kind of screwed. And when it comes to saving into your emergency fund, automate it. Make it so that you don't even have to think about it or remember it. Have it set up that the day after your payday, you have a direct debit that's going straight into your emergency account. Or if you use apps like Moneybox, for example, I use it, having the roundup function turned on so that every time you're buying anything, any transaction, a wee bit's going into it. And ideally, you want to get this saved up to at least 3 months expenses. Again, going back to week 2, you should know your monthly outgoings. So have it so that 3 months worth of that is saved up at least. If you can, try and get it to 6 months, but aim for that 3 months at a minimum. And again, even if the budget's tight, try your best. Even if it's only £5 a week, the more you start to see it accumulate and see that blanket, the more it will motivate you and you'll be able to get more and more in over time. And again, if your budget's that tight that you're only able to sacrifice that much, then you're, ironically enough, in more of a position to need something like this. Because if your budget is that stretched as is, an emergency comes, only bad stuff's going to happen. And then the second thing to make sure to automate at this point, slightly less detail needs about it, is that if you're in a workplace pension scheme, so your employer has a pension scheme, make sure that once your emergency thing is all saved up, that you're maximizing your employee match when it comes to contributing to your pension. If there's any employer match, common ones might be 6 and 6 or 8 and 8, make sure that you're maximizing that. So just go to your employer's pension scheme or just your employer, ask what the setup is, what's the maximum match that they'll do and what you need to do to get to that match, and get to that match. As in terms of returns for your long-term retirement, you're not going to get better. Literally right off the rip, you're getting 100% return if it's 8 for 8, for example. Right off the rip, you're getting 100% returns before any investment growth over the long term. So you're not going to get a safer, reliable return than that, or bang for your buck when it comes to saving. So make sure to take advantage of that. So now moving into week 5 or step 5, you've got your emergency fund set up and you've got your pensions working away in the background and you know your financial position. We're now ready to start saving for the here and now in the more immediate and be able to enjoy yourself a wee bit more. So again, take stock of your situation. You've got your emergency fund there. You know how much money is coming into your bank even after your pension contributions have been maxed out. You know how much is coming in. But now you really can focus on allocating every single pound to a certain job. Make sure every part of your wage has a job that is fulfilling. So whether that's paying the mortgage or paying rent or paying for food or paying for utilities. And then, yes, enjoying yourself as well. You need to allocate money to that, because if you're not having fun, if you can't enjoy a bit of it now, admittedly, you should never jeopardize your future to have fun most times. But if you can't have fun in the now at least a bit, then it's going to be significantly harder to actually stick to this in the long term. I hear too many finance gurus speaking about how every dime that you've got over your essentials should just be going into savings and investing so that future you can really enjoy that money. And while there is a kernel of truth to that wisdom, there should be money getting put away for future you. At the same time, you in the present is a person as well. And the reality is, time is the one thing money's not going to buy. So being able to enjoy the present now, well, you're never going to be able to do that again. So don't feel bad about having some money put aside to enjoy the now, as you're never going to be this young again. Some sacrifices will need to be made so that you can save again for the future. But that doesn't mean you need to be destitute as well. You can have a bit of both. And with your emergency fund set up and your pension accumulating in the background, you can really allocate it. So whether that's of your surplus income after your essentials, you might allocate 50% of it to go into long-term investing. So it might go into an additional pension contribution, or it might go into a stocks and shares ISA that will bridge the gap to retirement if you want to retire early. And then maybe the other 50% goes towards more immediate stuff, whether that's nice meals out every once a month or something like that, or into a holiday fund that you can do once a year or however many times a year you can afford to go on a big holiday. Again, it's just up to the person, and you need to just think down and think back again to week 1 to what you really want your life to be and what you want your future to be, and based off of that, make the judgment call yourself. And importantly, for people like me who might find it difficult to spend money in the here and now without feeling a bit guilty, when it's all planned out and clearly laid out with a structure, it's way easier to not feel any guilt about it, because you know this is the purpose of the money that you're spending, and it's, again, all within the plan. But before we move on to the final step, I'd like to ask you, if you've enjoyed the video so far, if you found it useful, informative, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really does help out. I've got some big plans in 2026, so again, make sure you're subscribed so that you don't miss out on that once they see the light of day, as I'm pretty sure you'll like it. But yeah, final week, week 6 or step 6, is all about accountability and reliability. The fact of the matter is, money, it's a relationship that we have. And while it would be nice just to be a set it and forget it, the reality is this stuff needs to be seen to regularly, as life happens, changes happen, and as such, changes to our finances and what we're planning will likely change as well. So as such, in this week or this step, set a rhythm, set a cadence that you'll regularly review this stuff in a way that works for you, that you'll be able to reliably do and realistically do. So that might mean when it comes to your day-to-day spending, maybe you look at it once a week. Again, get it out, see what's going on, see if the percentages are changing. And then maybe for a more broader evaluation of where you're at, maybe save that to monthly or quarterly. So you might be looking at how much savings you're now at, what's the growth been, maybe looking at your bills, have any of them changed majorly. And then after that, yearly, you can go to big picture planning. So maybe you reevaluate some big decisions that you might be making in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years, whether that's stuff like a wedding or a new house or early retirement. These types of things can be done on an annual basis once you've got, again, a nice full picture of what's going on. Now, I know that type of planning, especially planning that's 15, 20, 30 years in the making, could be quite daunting for a lot of people, So if you're really that unsure, be sure to seek out a professional, like a certified financial planner, so that they can walk you through it, sit you down, make you understand your situation and routes that you will be able to achieve that and the feasibility of all that. So again, don't be afraid to reach out to professionals to get help. But yeah, with that, that's the end of my 6-step program, or my 6-week program. Again, by the end of it, you're not going to magically have sorted your financial position in the terms of like security or even like a freedom sense. But what you will have is a real solid plan now, a real guideline that you can use to really attack and get to the place that you want to be financially. You'll now have real clarity and real direction of where you're heading, and you're now captain of that ship, and you'll be able to steer it where you want to end up. But the reality is, a lot of people are better off than they really give themselves credit for. And in my most recent video, I go over signs that cover how you can really evaluate and maybe come to realize that it's not as bad as everything seems. So if that sounds useful, be sure to check it out, and if not, until next time.